Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors, officers and our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Lena Messina and I'm the Mayor of dynamic Darebin City Council and the chairperson of tonight's council meeting. It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's council meeting. Due to the current COVID-19 circumstances, the decision was made last week that this meeting will be held virtually and be closed to the public in the interest of health and safety of the public, councillors and staff. I declare this meeting open at 6:03 p.m. Item number 1, acknowledgement of traditional owners. Darebin City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as the traditional owners and custodians of the land and waters we now call Darebin and pays respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Council pays respect to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in Darebin. Council recognises and pays tribute to the diverse culture, resilience and heritage of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We acknowledge the leadership of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and the right to self-determination in the spirit of mutual understanding and respect. The health and safety and wellbeing of the community has and will always be paramount consideration of the Council. Council continues to be guided by the government directives and wants to be able to do the right thing for the health of our community during the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is being held virtually in line with the current health restrictions. Should technical difficulties be encountered by the Council, the meeting may be adjourned until these are resolved with a maximum of 30 minutes. And if we cannot resolve the problem, we will reschedule the meeting. In such circumstances, any advice message will be shown on your screen. This meeting is being live streamed by the link on Council website, so the public will be able to view the proceedings of the meeting. The meeting is also being recorded and will be made available on the Council website as soon as practical after the meeting. There are a few housekeeping matters and technical tips for councillors that I need to pass on. Please leave your video on and mute your sound unless you wish to speak. If you wish to electronically raise your hand, hover over the participants button in the main video window and then press the small hand symbol in the right-hand corner. Please use this if you wish to ask a question or leave the meeting so I'm aware of this. You can also raise your actual hand to get my attention. Note there is no chat facility available during this meeting for councillors or general viewers. At Darebin, we pride ourselves on being progressive and contemporary council. In the interest of demonstrating leadership, I have high expectations that we will always be professional in our conduct and the language we use throughout the evening and the respectful in our debate. The chamber, virtually or in person, is both a workplace and a public space, and we have an obligation to ensure that the working environment and public forums are safe for everyone, both emotionally as well as physically. Membership. Before we commence, I'd like to introduce the councillors and senior staff who are with us this evening, confirm our councillors can see and hear each other. Welcome to the chambers this evening. Can I say welcome to Councillor Rennie, Councillor Newton.
Hi.
Councillor Hannon, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Williams, Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, the Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Trent McCarthy. Now, our officers tonight are Sue Wilkinson, the CEO, Sam Hewitt, the General Manager of Operations and Capital, Rachel Olivier, Acting General Manager of Communities, Jodie Watson, General Manager of Governance and Engagement, Anita Craven, Manager Governance and Corporate Strategy, Stephen Mahon, Coordinator of Council Business, and Shadi Hannah, Acting General Manager of Communities. Thank you, and let's get underway. Item number 3, I note that there are no apologies. Item number 4, disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillors and officers, are there any interests or conflicts of interest to declare?
No.
No. As there are no conflicts of interest to declare, I will now move into confirmation of the minutes of the council meetings. Councillors, do I have a motion for the adoption of minutes of ordinary council meeting held on the 28th of June? Do I have a mover for those? And I cannot see the whole screen.
Happy to move.
Okay, can you just hold on a minute because I cannot see the whole screen? Okay, can we remove those councillor minutes? Because I can't see the whole screen, so I noticed they were moved by Councillor Williams. Do I have a seconder? Apologies. Seconded by Councillor McCarthy. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, item number 6, public question time. These questions have been, residents and interested persons were asked to lodge their public question chimes from council by 12 noon today. These questions have been circulated to officers for responses. Due to the meeting being held virtually, public questions received until 12 noon today will be answered at the meeting. Questions received after 12 noon will be taken on notice and written response will be provided to the submitter. Further, no submissions or comments will be able to be made on reports listed on the agenda. I'll read the questions that have been submitted online and provide response to the same. Please note that the public question time will not exceed 30 minutes, so my questions, I hope, and answers will be in that 30-minute duration. Just one moment. There are several questions in relation to there are question number 1 and question number 2 are from applicants Ted Lapkin and Davia Abranovich regarding the resolution of council at the last council meeting concerning Palestine. I will read both questions and responses collectively. Please note that Mr. Lapkin's and Mr. Abramovich's questions will be reproduced in full in the minutes of this meeting due to them in part being statements and preamble, and I'll be reading out specific questions. Question number 1, does Darwin Council's refusal to condemn Hamas reflect indifferences towards the genocidal agenda of a terrorist organisation that seeks to commit a second Holocaust by destroying the world's largest Jewish community? Question number 2, why is Darwin Council serving as a cat's paw for a cynical Palestine political gamut by mindless regurgitating superfluous anti-Zionist tropes that have no foundation in fact? Question number 3, in view of the demonstrative anti-Israel bias that permeates its motion, as evidenced by my preceding 2 questions, how can this council claim with the straight face to be supporting Israeli members of the Darwin community? The next questions are this is from Daria Abranovich. I condemn those indiscriminate attacks which attacks Israel's civilian population as an assault on Israeli civilians by Hamas, a terrorist group committed to Israel's destruction. Question number 2, condemn Hamas's notorious human rights abuse is its killing of its people or its putting of children in harm's way by using them as human shields, and to dig holes its murderous ideology that building scores of tunnels with the intention of conducting terrorist attacks and kidnapping of Israel civilians and soldiers. The situation of rockets, weapons, depots and terrorist operations inside mosques, schools, hospitals and other medical clinics, and not acknowledgement that no country on earth could tolerate the willful targeting of its citizens by a terrorist group. Question number 3, the acknowledgement that Israel has a right and responsibility to defend its citizens against uneasy barrage of thousands upon thousands of rockets aimed at Israeli cities. These are 2 questions submitted by Ted Lapkin and Davia Abranovich. The response to those questions are as follows. Council does not condone any violence and is as outlined in the motion, calls for the observance of human rights generally, which is fundamentally to the achievement of just and lasting peace in Israel-Palestine. The statements condoning violence and standing in solidarity with the Palestinian and Israeli communities in Darwin relate to Council's existing commitments to intercultural and interfaith dialogue, peace and harmony as outlined in the Towards Equity framework. The Darwin's Towards Equity framework recognises global social justice challenges and the strong need to bring Darwin community together in collective condoning the violence. Darwin has many residents amongst our community from the Middle Eastern background, including Palestinians and Israelis. Many members in our community have been appalled at the violence and destruction. It is important that civil institutions and all levels of government stand up in support of peace, justice on the global issues that have local significance in our community. Council is committed to promoting human rights and respect for all. Thank you. I now move on to the next questions. There are several, so please bear with me. Christopher Wilkinson from Reservoir. About 2 months ago, Council resurfaced Radford Road, literally painting over the issue of ongoing hoon driving. For over a year, I have contacted 000, Reservoir Police, Greensborough Highway Patrol and Council. Nothing has been done. There is still no traffic management system in place. Hoon driving is still a daily occurrence. If you drive down Radford Road today, you can see the extent of burnouts up and down the road. This is a known hotspot and has been already ended one life. When will Council finally do something? Our answer is as follows. Addressing hoon driving is a shared responsibility between road managers and enforcement agencies. Council recently installed speed cushions at the entrance at Breck's Court along Radford Road as a trial to deter antisocial driving, and we will continue to look at options to address urgent issues in the area. However, the evidence shows that addressing hoon driving needs reinforcement because hoon drivers deliberately ignore the rules. That's why we're also regularly in touch with Victorian Police about Radford Road. Thank you for contacting the police. I encourage you to keep on doing this. Tonight's Council is also considering its schedule for a detailed investigation and community engagement on road improvements across our city. Our team will be in touch to let you know the timing that has been scheduled for your area. The next question is from Penelope Bennett from Kew. Could the Council please provide an update about the Victoria Road and other pop-up cycle lanes in the Council area and other measures they may be implementing to promote mode shift and address potential fears by using public transport, especially with additional COVID outbreaks? Question number 2, has Council made submissions to the Department of Transport about the measures such as reducing the Victoria Road speed limit to 40 k's? Many schools or any in the vicinity are needed to make on-road safe cycle lane and the improvement of pedestrian crossing across Victoria Road as complementary works. Question number 3, could Council please advocate to the state government to implement the pop-ups as soon as possible? Thanks for your question, Penelope. Victoria Road pop-up progress and advocacy, question 1 and question number 3. Victoria Road is a Darebin-owned main road under our management. The Victorian Road pop-ups is a state government project, not a council project, and we would encourage you to also share your views directly with the state government. Council knows that the Victorian Road changes are important for prompting safety, and I have asked officers to contact both the Department of Transport and you to provide an update when works will be complete. The officer will update you on other projects as well. Council has not applied for a 40-kilometre speed limit along Victoria Road at this stage. We have recently changed the speed limit on local roads in the West, Thornbury and Preston areas. Council is committed to lowering speed limits, and our council plan includes the action to reduce the speed limit in more local roads across our city with the state government's approval. Council is committed to advocating to the state government for a safer road. The next question is from Marinda from Reservoir. What is Council doing about the dangerous driving occurring in the new intersection at the Cheddar Road and Carroll Street in Reservoir? This new intersection was funded as part of the Black Spot program, and the changes will be efficient if people follow the new signage. I cannot count the amount of cars now entering into oncoming traffic to cross illegally into Cheddar Road, northbound, instead of going left on Cheddar Road, westbound on Carroll. There is no enforcement, and these runners risk the safety of cyclists, pedestrians and other drivers. Cars are also regularly crossing over Cheddar into Gladstone, which is clearly at no entry. I use this road area frequently, and every single time I witness multiple cars illegally and dangerously ignoring the rules. It seems that they do not think the rules apply to them. What will Council do about this? Thanks, Marinda, for your feedback. We are very well aware of the issue and are working closely with Victoria Police to provide some enforcement. The next question we have is from Ruth Jelly from Northcote. Question number 1 from Ruth, and thank you for your questions, Ruth, and your email last night. Question number 1, can Council provide an update on the progress of Preston West Activity Link Streets for People project, including the decision on traffic calming measures for James Street and the construction status of Pop-Up Park? Question number 2, at the last Council's meeting, I asked specifically about Council's commitment to pop-up bicycle lanes on key arterial roads, a definition which is carrying the main flow of traffic between towns, but the direct response was not provided. In the absence of a direct response to my questions, I seek permission to ask both questions again. Will Darebin Council join Yarra Council in advocating to make the pop-up bike lanes on Heidelberg Road permanent? 2, can Council please explain why it voted against any form of community consultation on development of possible design or pop-up bike lanes on High Street in Northcote Thornbury, given that this decision appears to contradict the commitment stated in the Council's Quarter 3 report? 3, good council governance requires Council to report publicly on answers to provide for questions that have been taken on notice during public question time. Why was Council not included these responses in the agenda for June and July Council meetings for questions taken on notice in April and June, respectively, from Kirby of Preston in April and from me in June? Thank you again, once again, for your questions, Ruth. The answers as follows. Council recently installed both the James Street Pop-Up Park road closure and the James Street curb build-outs. Tonight, Council will make a decision on its forward schedule for detailed investigations and community engagement about transport and local area placemaking. An officer will contact you tomorrow to let you know the timing of engagement for your area. Darebin advocated to the state government to install the Heidelberg Road pop-up lane, and we know it has been used by many people to safety commute through COVID. I have asked officers to contact the Department of Transport to ask the latest results as we may share this with our community. I note your question about High Street pop-up bike. Our new council plan includes a project to refresh the Darebin transport strategy to ensure our transport system is supporting our community through COVID and beyond. Since April this year, Council has been receiving governance report and its monthly ordinary council meetings. This governance report brings together a range of governance administrative matters, including responses to public questions taken on notice. The questions from yourself on the 8th of April and from Kirby on the 26th of April were taken on notice and responses provided in the governance report in May and June, respectively. The next question comes from Serena O'Mealy from Reservoir. Since Darebin Council has shifted all appendices into single document with its meeting agenda, not only is the document enormous and unwieldy, but many of these reports that have been incorporated are no longer keyword searchable. Taken together, this is a serious accessibility issue for the public, which I am asking for Council to correct. At the very least, will Council ensure that all reports can be keyword searched? I note there has been no follow-up and that I'm aware from my related questions on the 26th of April, which were taken was given as follows. I will speak with the team to see if we can streamline the process to make it easier for community access. Question number 2 from Serena. Darebin Council's response the 12th of July 2021 to my budget submission 19th of May 2021 claims that it would cost $1 million to remediate the former Dole Avenue kindergarten for public tenant. This is many times more than the existing building could possibly be worth. Has an error been made in the response to me, and if not, can an explanation be given for the projected costs? Question number 3, has Darebin Council made the formal monetary offer for each of the 3 parcels of Vic Road's land with Clements Reserve, 1 to 11 McMahon Road, and the rear of 22 and 32 to 34 Clements Grove to the state government? And if it has, when was the offer made on each parcel? What was the offer made on each parcel of land? And if it was, what is the holding up of the purchase? Serena, apologies for not following up with you after the April meeting. Officers are working on a system upgrade that will rectify this issue, which is scheduled to be completed by the 3rd quarter. In response to your question number 2, the figure of $1 million provided on the 12th of July 2021 is an estimated cost of the funds required to enable the building to be repurposed for community use. The works required would include hazardous material removal, general building renovation, and upgrades required for building code compliance. Further investigations into the building and options for the former Dole Avenue kindergarten site will be completed in the current year as per Council Strategic Property Review. The answer to question number 3, officers are continuing to work through stages of the acquisitions related to due diligence prior to requesting the Valuer General's valuation. As previously communicated, the timeline for the acquisition is by nature a lengthy process, given the steps required. Unfortunately, we are unable to provide any further information relating to the details of the acquisition, given the confidential nature of the matter. Once there is news to share, it will be shared with the community as soon as possible. Officers appreciate your ongoing interest in the purchase of Clements Reserve. Next question is, just check the time clock. David Snadden from Northcote. In regards to the redevelopment of the Northcote Aquatic Centre, NARC, as parents of children who are members of the Northcote Swimming Club and Northcote Water Polo Club, we wish to ask the following questions. 1, can Council confirm the burners and boilers of the indoor 50-metre pool have been repaired and that the suitable temperature for training purposes will be maintained until the NARC is closed for redevelopment? Number 2 question, can Council provide an explanation why a staged redevelopment, staggered redevelopment that will be Can Council explain why a staged redevelopment that would enable the NSC and NWPC and the border community to keep using the outdoor 50-metre pool during development was not considered, and what basis was the decision made and by whom? Third and final question from David is, both the NSC and NWPC made a strong representation during the consultation process that the outdoor 50-metre pool remain open. We respectfully ask why the needs of these vital community sporting clubs were not prioritised in the decision-making process to close NARC completely for redevelopment. And I noticed, David, that you've submitted a 4th question, and unfortunately I'm not able to accept this 4th question, but perhaps you can submit it in the next council meeting, given that we can only accept 3 questions from one person at the one given time. Thanks for your questions. I can confirm that this morning's temperature reading of the outdoor pool was 27 degrees, and today the boiler is functioning to ensure the appropriate water temperature. Due to the age of the facility, which is at the end of its life, it cannot be guaranteed that there'll be no further service disruptions before the facility is closed for redevelopment. However, staff and the YMCA are working hard to maximise community use. Very early in the design process, Council investigated a number of design options, which included an option to design and build a new facility whilst maintaining current operation. This design, however, was ultimately not chosen due to the number of factors, including compromised design and functionality of a new facilities. Costs, officers estimated additional costs to approximately $20 million above the current proposed design due to having to relocate the car park, build temporary plant to enable continued operations of pools, ongoing operational costs, and increased construction time. The current 50-metre pool and sporting plant infrastructure have reached the end of their serviceable life, and including the water leaks from the pool. Leak repairs have been conducted over recent months, only for new leaks to be emerged because of the age of the facility. On the 20th of July 2020, Council considered a report on the NARC concept design stage, community consultation findings, and resolved to continue the design process utilising community feedback that has been received to further define and shape the project. So to further design and shape the project so that it is being delivered within budget. As the key stakeholders and the Northcote Swim Club and the Northcote Water Polo Club were consulted in the concept design stage in April and May 2021. I acknowledge their feedback included concerns about the transition to alternative facilities during construction, assistance that Council could provide to support them during the closure period. Invaluable insights on the range of the components of the new facilities overall supported the redevelopment of the concept designs. In total, Council also received over 400 completed community surveys, 19 written submissions, an additional 5 stakeholder submissions, and 7 video consultations with leading industry management operators that overall supported the concept designs. Thank you. The next question is from Claire Layden from Reservoir. I have 2 questions. Question number 1 regarding the Streets of People East Reservoir Corridor, which I understand Council have budgeted on amount for design of the interventions around McMahon Road and Boulderwood Roundabout, which can be expected. When can we expect Council to commence the community consultation and design for this? And can you please provide an update on the process to reinstate the developer contributions levy? Thank you, Claire, for your questions. Really good questions. Answer to question number 1, community consultation was completed in September 2019. Detailed design work will progress over the next couple of months, but this is a technical step and an officer will contact you about this. Question number 2, the planning scheme amendment process to implement the development contribution plan is nearing its final stages. Contributions plan is a planning panel hearing concluded in May 2021, and the panel's report is expected very soon. The planning report and any recommendations will be considered by Council later this year. After the final approval will then be considered for the Minister for Planning. The next question is from Matthew Burke from Preston. At the May Council meeting, Mayor Messina made it clear that an update on the Kramer Street traffic calming will be presented at the July Council meeting. I cannot see it in the agenda, and am I missing something? Residents are very anxious for traffic calming to commence. When can residents expect to be updated on Kramer Street traffic calming? Thanks, Matthew, for your contribution once again to the question time at Council. Tonight at item number 8.2, Council will make a decision on its forward schedule for detailed investigations and community engagement about transport and local area placemaking. An officer will contact you tomorrow to let you know the timing of the engagement plan for Kramer Street. And finally, the next question is from John Nugent from Epping. Mayor Messina, I referred to 111 signatories to a petition regarding Preston football crowds using the Preston Market car park in business hours, and the response I recently received, which was disappointing for the shopkeepers and the store holders and the petitioners. The cause this problem is solely and the council who lease out the Preston Oval in September annually. Is Council aware of the loss of the car spaces to the redevelopment of the Preston station? Thanks again for your contribution to question time, John. Council officers in the Northern Football and Netball League are aware of the Preston level crossing works and the flow on the effect for the parking in the area. Both parties will be meeting on site shortly with a representative from the level crossing project, restrictions permitting, to discuss arrangements for this year's final series. This will include, as it has been in previous year, a range of strategies to manage transport and parking issues during the finals, including the possibility of using nearby facilities such as Melbourne Polytechnic for a parking area and the use of traffic marshals, and promoting sustainable transport options for both participating teams and spectators. I also need to apologise because there was a second preamble to the question, a second question. I'm sorry about that. I didn't actually see this, but John also asked, does Council take any responsibility for shopkeeper or storeholder losses of between 10% of their income per day? And can you please reassure the petitions that this matter will get proper response and action? I think we've answered those questions. Just one moment while I gather up my thoughts and perhaps have a glass of water. Item number 1, the first, Council, the first report we have to consider this evening is 8.1 Darebin Intercultural Centre Programming Think Tank. Councillors, are there any questions to the officers? As there's no questions, we will now move to debate. Councillors, I remind you that once the debate has started, there are no questions directed to the officers. Do I have a motion? Councillor Greco. May I request that Councillor Greco's motion is... Can we go back to Councillor Greco's motion? Because I don't think... Are we moving the officer's recommendation, or is there an amendment to the officer's recommendation? Councillor Greco, can you please turn your microphone off mute and confirm that that is your recommendation?
That is my alternate
motion. Yeah. Can I have a second to this motion? And can you please raise your hand, because I cannot... Right, thank you. Can I have a second? Seconded by Councillor Williams. Councillor Greco, before we go into speaking to the motion, may I request the motion... Yeah, we're doing that already. Sorry. Could you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Greco?
Thank you, Mayor Messina. And first of all, I'd like to start by thanking the officers for bringing this report to the attention of council and many members in our community, and I for myself have been looking forward to receiving this report. What this report does is that it basically establishes the setup of a programming think tank for the Intercultural Centre. As councillors will know, the Intercultural Centre will be constructed in this financial year, and that is the actual bricks and mortar part of the Intercultural Centre, and also what is required with it is a future programming for the Intercultural Centre once it's up and ready and established. So what this report does, it sets up, as I said, a programming think tank, and the think tank will, as you can see from the report, council will be extending an invitation to a whole series of peak organisations, people with great expertise in issues of interculturalism and multiculturalism, and asking them to participate in a series of meetings, from 4 to 6 meetings between September and February next year, in order to set the guidelines on what should be the programming for such an innovative centre. It's a real opportunity for the Darebin Council to lead in the space of cultural diversity and interculturalism, and the contribution of the think tank will enable council to elevate the work of the Intercultural Centre into the future. It's envisaged that the Intercultural Centre will hopefully have a vision similar to a centre that looks forward and looks at how we can better create and better harness the value of interculturalism in our city, and also be a centre of ideas, very much like the Wheeler Centre is for general ideas and progressive ideas. Hopefully the Intercultural Centre will be able to set a path into the future of generating discussion and debate, and also activities and functions around interculturalism. And finally, I'll just say, councillors, I'm looking forward to the think tank being established, and also looking forward to what the think tank comes up with, and also as the slight change in the the officer's motion says, that the report will come back to council, and so that council can consider that report and move forward into the future in relation to the Intercultural Centre's activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Councillor Williams, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. The Intercultural Centre is undergoing a period of renewal and relocation. So the Intercultural Centre already brings together peak bodies and community leaders and community experts from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. Relocating to the Preston market is actually keeping it in line with the Preston Central and close to public transport, and also close to where the Intercultural Centre has been since 2011. Now, we're going to be establishing a vision to ensure that the objections and the strategy of the future programming for the Intercultural Centre will continue to grow, and to ensure that those peak bodies and those who use the Intercultural Centre will have a wonderful outcome for what will benefit those, particularly that for those diverse backgrounds. So I look forward to seeing where this grows.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any further speakers? Councillor McCarthy.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. I've actually just proposed an amendment. It's quite minor, which I've circulated via email to councillors and staff. I can tell you what it says, if that's useful.
Before that happens, can we have we circulated it to the administration staff, and can we please put that on the screen?
It's just been circulated. Yeah.
Can we have the staff member put that on the screen, please? Councillor McCarthy, was this circulated prior to tonight's meeting, or just now? Was the first time? I can't hear you. Sorry, Councillor McCarthy.
Sorry, Mayor. Just now, although it may be resolved simply if officers can confirm, because there's no reference to the Centre for Multicultural Youth in the list of key stakeholders, and so it was just to confirm that they will also be included.
Can I?
Just before we do that, can we put that on the screen, please?
Mayor, just to confirm.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Question about we can't ask any questions to the officers as we've entered into the debate, but I have not seen the amendment, but I just want to call up my email, and then we'll go straight to.
Mayor, can I? So the staff are working on getting that on the screen, but because of the technology, it will be very difficult to do these things in real time tonight, councillors.
Okay, so can I ask? Okay, there it goes. Can I ask if that is acceptable to the mover and to the seconder?
Mayor Messina, just a point of clarification in relation to the amendment. In the report, it's already mentioned in the report that youth will be one of the key areas that will be sought out. So I just wanted to state that. I'm not sure if Councillor McCarthy is aware of that.
Is it listed in the key stakeholders in the report?
No,
and usually stakeholders mean anybody who's appropriate to be part of the multicultural.
One moment, Councillor Williams. Can we just do one at a time? Thank you. Councillor Greco, is that acceptable? Is that amendment acceptable to yourself?
In order to move the meeting ahead, I accept that that amendment.
Thank you. Is that acceptable to the seconder, Councillor Williams?
Well, no, it's not.
Okay.
Because a stakeholder actually involves everybody. It doesn't really cuts out particular groups or people.
Okay, so then we will. It's not acceptable to the. Well, I've never come across this one actually before. Just one moment. It's not acceptable to the mover, and it's to the seconder. So we will have to then put this item on. We'll have to hold that and put this item on debate. So let's go into this particular item. So Councillor McCarthy, do we have a second to accept Councillor McCarthy's amendment? I can't see everybody. Yes, just one moment.
Happy to.
Seconded by Councillor Newton. So I can't see everybody's hand on this, but now I can. Okay, so Councillor McCarthy, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, and apologies, it's a late amendment. I was hoping actually to seek officer clarification before the item was debated about whether they would be invited. The Centre for Multicultural Youth is the peak body for multicultural young people in Victoria. So whilst there are a couple of organisations that are referred in there, such as La Trobe University and Melbourne Polytechnic, they're only likely to engage young people who are actually enrolled in those institutions. And if we're engaging the likes of a peak body such as the Ethnic Communities Council of Victoria, which I strongly support as well, it's only appropriate that we would, in fact, invite a body like the Centre for Multicultural Youth, which has significant reach into our own community in Darebin, to invite representation as part of this. I also would note that the CEO of the Centre for Multicultural Youth is a Darebin resident as well, so it's only fitting that we recognise the strong connection that we have to that organisation and the role that they play advocating for young people, but in particular young people who may in fact not be in formal education, but in fact may be in the work or in fact out of work as well. So just seeking to be as inclusive as we can.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. So acknowledging what Councillor Williams is saying about everyone being a stakeholder, in the report we do have a few significant organisations listed specifically to reach out to, and I think why the Centre for Multicultural Youth would be a good one to add, if it isn't there now, is because their vision is really aligned with what the Intercultural Centre is wanting to do. So their vision is young people from migrant and refugee backgrounds are connected, empowered and influential Australians. So it's such a good fit for what we're talking about. And what I really love about where we're going with the Intercultural Centre is that it's going to be welcoming for everyone. It's going to be about a just society and reducing and addressing racism. So it's a really good fit.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Are there any further speakers? Would you like to speak to the amendment, Councillor Williams?
Yeah, then I'd like to ensure that if in the amendment to be included any other stakeholders that we might have missed off then.
Are you foreshadowing an amendment?
Oh, just through Trent, if it was okay, just to add on any others that we might have missed then.
Are you happy for that, Councillor McCarthy, to be added?
That's great, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, so can we vote? Can we have? It's going to be very difficult to do this live. So what I'm concluding is that item number 3 will include Centre for Multicultural Youth in the list of key stakeholders and other stakeholders. Is that correct, Councillor Williams? Okay, so we're going to vote on this to include this. So all those in favour? That is carried, sorry, actually, Councillor Greco, I can't see, is that your hand up?
Yep.
Great, that is carried unanimously. Thank you. This becomes a new substantive motion. Are we able to get the officers to advise if we can add that so we can, or are we just going to put that item to the vote?
Just put it to vote.
With the vote. All those in favour of voting for item number 3 to be included in the motion? All those in favour?
No, we've already included it to the motion. Now we're voting on
the new substantive motion. Yes. So all those in favour? That is carried unanimously. So I'm just trying to look for the hands. That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the next item we have to vote for is item number 8.2, which is the local area placemaking program. Your street, your say. I now ask for councillors, are there any questions to the officers? Councillor Newton.
Sorry, no, I was wanting to move, but I was jumping ahead.
Yep. Are there any questions to the officers? Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Lawrence, thank you.
Yes, Messina, I just had a question through with the officers. I had put it in earlier, but on sort of was battling with technology just recently, so I'm not sure if there was an answer. I just had a question about East Reservoir and East Preston and the timelines on their works, given the amount of development and traffic problems in those two areas, and whether there was what resources would be required to bring that forward.
Thank you. Over to the officers for comment.
Through you, Mayor. Councillors, there are works planned in both East Reservoir and East Preston, and we've circulated a list earlier today. They're the projects that were included in Council's current year budget. So I just want to clarify that Council's plans for construction are all still in place, and they come from investigation work that was done in previous years. What the local area placemaking forward schedule that Council's considering tonight does is it sets the schedule for investigations that will help us identify improvements for future years. The report outlines officers' recommendation and the reasons that we recommend prioritising the northwest. If councillors were to seek to adjust the schedule, essentially to add some new areas would require deferring some other areas. We've got the capacity in the current year to deal with about a third of the city at any one time.
Thank you, Ms. Olivia. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Lawrence? Councillor Hannon, you have a question. I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Mayor. A follow-up question, really, to the answer that's just been provided. I wonder if we could get just a general overview, please, of the rationale of why those particular the given areas under the local area placemaking approach, not necessarily a area by area description of exactly when, but more the principles and the criteria for the rationale for timing of which area goes first, second, third. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hannon. Through you, Mayor Messina, the schedule has been put forward to Council for consideration from a number of different factors, including when we've been to those areas previously to talk about road safety or traffic operations. And we've also used lots of information, including requests from our community about what's happening for them near their houses and in their streets. We know in particular in the northwest area, there's strong concerns from the community, as well as we haven't been up there for a long time to look at the road network operations. We've addressed a few local safety issues with great effect, but looking at it the network perspective is really important. And we heard a question earlier tonight about the road safety issues in Radford Road. In the Preston West area, we feel that this is a really good time to go in and talk to the community because it overlaps really neatly with the level crossing removal project. And further down in Thornbury West, we've got the changes that will be happening to the road network because of the level crossing removal project as well down there. It's important, and we haven't spoken to that community for a while. As we go beyond in the years, the ones that are scheduled for investigation in the third year of this rolling program, they're areas that we've been to recently, or we have lower instances of road safety concerns or network problems.
Thank you, Alan. Councillors, are there any further questions? As there are no further questions, we will now move into debate. And I remind you that once the debate has started, there'll be no further questions to the officers. Councillors, do I have a motion?
Yes,
Councillor Newton.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
May I request that the officer's recommendation be? Thank you. Do I have a second? And please bear with me because when that goes up on the screen, I can't see everybody's hand, so just be patient. Okay. Do I have a seconder?
I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Councillor Newton, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is a really important project. I'm pretty sure that for all 9 of us, parking and traffic is probably the thing we get contacted about the most, if not development. So this is a really strategic approach to looking at it holistically, making sure that we're looking at not just something like doing a speed hump for one road, which might then mean that the traffic goes to the next road. This is looking about the whole area and the whole precinct, making sure that we're getting it right across. I know both of these areas that are going first really well. It's my old ward and my current ward, as also some of the further south part, but all in the west. I really agree with Alan that this is an area that really needs attention. We're seeing Cheddar Road happening now, for example, which is one of the last things we did in the old council. We're looking at, making that much, much safer. So there's a bit of work happening around there. So this allows us to really focus on these areas over the next 3 years and do 1/3 of the city at the time. I think it's a really good way to approach it. And I really love the focus on the community consultation and really hearing what people are concerned about in their local areas. And I think it's a really good approach. So really happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Councillor Greco.
Thank you, Mayor Messina. Again, I welcome this approach, and because it's a systemic approach, it's a network approach, as it was mentioned by our officers, and I really welcome that that we're finally kicking off the northwest of the municipality. It's an area that has been ignored over the years in relation to looking at it from a holistic sense, and it's good that we're rotating around. The areas that are not getting that immediate attention are because they are in a different part of the cycle. Either things have been implemented in the area or things are already been investigated in the area. But in the northern and the western part, that work will start as a result of us hopefully endorsing this policy here tonight. I've noticed in the last year or so, perhaps 2 years, many more requests coming, particularly from the northern end of our city, in terms of rat runs, in terms of improving the movability around the area, and so a project like this would actually address that. The other thing that needs to be said too in relation to this, given that we'll be kicking off in some of those areas in the north, that consultation will be key in how this is done. And I want to stress and underline, and something I'll be monitoring very carefully, is that given the high number of people from diverse backgrounds in those areas, more than 60% of the community is from a non-English speaking background. So communication in a creative and diversified way will be key for whatever gets recommended of actually being supported from our community. So I can't stress that anymore in terms of how we communicate with our community in relation to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Are there any further speakers? Councillor McCarthy.
Thanks, Mayor. I also support the recommendation and the motion moved by Councillor Newton and Councillor Greco. And I happen to be in the situation where one half of my ward, in fact, is in year 1 and the other half is in year 3. And I completely understand why that would be the case in terms of the scheduling, because the section that's referred to particularly, and I'll refer my comments just to the Thornbury West area, which also includes a whole section of Preston West, north of Miller Street, is currently experiencing the impacts of both the level crossing removal project. It's also experiencing the huge development activity, which I'm sure we're all aware of as a result of the state government's public housing and social housing projects, with developments alongside that, as well as, of course, the natural impact of what's happening further up the line as well. So one of the things that I really appreciate about the approach that officers have proposed here is that if you take, for instance, that first year, you're looking at the Reservoir West, Preston West and Thornbury West areas. That's also the Gilbert Road tramline. We know how important it is that we understand the placemaking component with the public transport networks that exist. And likewise, you see the same sorts of approaches elsewhere in the city. But I take it that the critical thing here for us all to keep in mind is that this is about having a holistic approach in each area and not going street by street to the point where we create confusion. So I really support the strategic approach that officers have taken, and happy to support Councillors Newton and Greco in this motion.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Lawrence, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yes, Mayor Messina. Yes, look, I'll be supporting this motion just because on the balance it's taking steps in a number of areas across the city, but with some regret, in particular, a controversial decision that was a local area traffic management plan that was put on Northeast Reservoir last year that we're still having a lot of backlash from, and that area won't, and we had mixed results from the consultation, and obviously we had the middle of the lockdown, so it wasn't a great time to get consultation. So it's regrettable that area in the northeast won't get a second look at some of those measures that now have become fairly unpalatable to that community. So they won't be really reviewed till some time. So that's why I had concern that we're not fixing the very divisive decision that was made regarding that traffic area.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are there any further speakers? As there are no further speakers, before we go to the vote, I would like to remind councillors that we're voting on the original officer's recommendation with no amendments. So let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Sorry. I can't open up my water bottle. I can't. Oh, I just opened it. Just one moment. Too much talking. The next report we have to consider this evening is item number 8.3, the draft road management plan 2021. Councillors, are there any questions to the officers? No questions. Can I ask that the motion be put on the screen, please? Councillors, do I have a mover for the motion? Moved by Councillor McCarthy. Are we moving the officer's recommendation, Councillor McCarthy?
That's right, Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? Now, bear in mind, you need to please raise your voice so I can hear you. Do I have a seconder?
Mayor Messina, Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Thank you. Thank you for raising your voice because I can't see it when the screen's on there. So, Councillor McCarthy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll keep it brief. This is pretty straightforward, but it's important. An important stage in the process. Council is required, as councillors would be aware, to have a road management plan. It is a requirement, and council needs to undertake that on a cyclical basis. The first stage in that, of course, is the first part of the recommendation that we've got before us, which, of course, is to look at what the officers have actually identified. And obviously, the previous road management plan, the one that we currently operate under, some context has changed. And I think we need to recognise that. There's obviously been a shift in road patterns, in road usage. There's also maintenance elements, and, of course, the big matter that hangs over so many of our policy areas, of course, which is the impact of climate change and warming surfaces. So when we think about a road management plan, and that's really what we are proposing to do now, is release the draft road management plan for public consultation. We need to think about roads not just as things that people drive on, ride on, or walk along or walk across, but in fact are actually an essential part of the urban fabric. And so you'll see a lot of content in the road management plan that refers to the interaction between the open space strategy, which of course oversees parks, nature strips and the like, as well as who is responsible for different elements of this. I won't go through all the proposed sort of changes. That's really part of, obviously councillors may wish to raise some of those, other than to say that this process now is where the public gets to have its say. Have we got it right? Has council missed opportunities? Are there things that we should be thinking about? I know that there is a strong sentiment in some parts of our community to see us use road space in more productive ways, and obviously where possible to actually green up our neighbourhoods and convert some unused road space or underused road space, in fact, for gardens and nature strip planting. And I know, Mayor, this is something we've put in our council plan and certainly something we'd love to see more of. So I would encourage community members to, as much as it might sound like a dry document, it's actually a really important document because it guides the management process, the management system and the policy direction of this council when it comes to thinking about our road space, how we look after it, and where we might want to actually transform road into in fact green spaces as well. So I'll leave it there, Mayor, and of course the community consultation process shortly commences, and this will come back to us potentially in October.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Rennie, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Messina. It might be helpful to point out some of the areas where there have been changes from the previous road management plan. And many of these changes aren't significant, and they've occurred as a result of a comprehensive internal review that has been undertaken. So they include some administrative changes to make the road management plan easier to read, some inspection changes where officers will inspect bike lanes concurrently with other parts of the road assets. Previously, they were inspected separately, and I think that's a really good common sense approach because we need to view roads as a whole, used by different user groups. The addition of emergency works being carried out within 36 hours, for example, in the example of flooding, and that's obviously something I believe our community would support. And road inspections, including inspections for tree obstructions from private and council-owned trees, being added to the plan. So we have had a road management plan. It's a statutory responsibility of councils to have one of these, and our plan has served us fairly well, but the internal review identified these things. So they will now be part of this plan that goes forward to the community for consultation, and I really look forward to our community's views on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Councillors, are there any further speakers? Before I put that item to the vote, I'd like to remind councillors that we're voting on the officer's recommendation as listed in the agenda and in the council papers. I'll now put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the next item we have on the agenda is item number 8.4. No, yes it is. Sorry, I'm losing my, I've got so many bits of papers in front of me. Sorry, excuse me a moment. The next report, as I said, item 8.4, the contract award for the CT 2019181 for the electrical maintenance and installations. Councillors, are there any questions to the officers regarding this item? As there's no questions, councillors, do I have a motion?
Happy to move.
Councillor Williams? Councillor Williams, are you moving the officer's recommendation with additions?
Yes, I am.
Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second. That's Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Williams.
So the electrical maintenance installation services is going to two contracts. It's going to AG Comms Servicing Proprietary Limited and TCM Solutions Proprietary Limited. Having the two...
Councillor Williams, before we go into you... Oh, sorry, you've got the... Sorry, I beg your pardon. I didn't realise that the amounts were put into the motion. So I'll stop the clock and start you again. Apologies to interrupt you, Councillor Williams.
It's all right, I won't need the full amount. It's pretty straightforward. We go through these tenders on a regular basis. So the electrical contracting involves obviously going through all our electrical equipment through the company. So there's quite a number, hundreds of electrical maintenance and installations and services that have to go through proper checks and audits. So those two contracts will be going to two companies, which is AG Comms Servicing Proprietary Limited and TCM Solutions. One amount was for $48,377.80. I'll have to go back to my other screen. Now these contracts start as from the 14th of August 2021. They go for a 2-year with a 3 one-year option from there. Now I'm missing that section that the officers have taken down with the amounts, but I'll go back from my other area. And the other amount is for $47,723, including GST. And that's pretty much, and I'd like to just say thank you to all the other tenders that actually put forward. There were 14 tenders that attended for this, and as I said, two have been successful, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor Messina, and as Councillor Williams has talked very capably to who we've awarded these tenders to, I think it's worth noting a few things about the tender process. And with big tenders like this, the process is overseen by a probity auditor. It was Pitcher Partners who actually come in and make sure that our processes are very robust in terms of selecting the very best tenderers to give value for money to council and therefore to our community. And it was also fantastic in reading the documents supporting this decision to understand how our social and sustainable procurement policies contribute to decision making in relation to equity, inclusion and wellbeing considerations, and the sort of return on our investment from the spending that we also get in terms of local employment, apprentices getting jobs locally in Darebin, and other economic development considerations. So I note that these tenders also had a strong commitment to sustainable initiatives and practices. So I'm very pleased to be pursuing this, and of course because of the electrical services they'll be providing to council.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Are there any further speakers? Councillors, as there's no further speakers and we did not read out in the initial officer's recommendation the amounts and the successful tender names, can I please have the motion put up on the screen?
I did read out the names.
But before we voted on them, we read it out during the process. So I think what we need to do is read out the names when we move the officer's recommendation at the same time, then speak to the debate. Okay, so this is what we're actually voting on, councillors. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item we have on the agenda is item number 8.5, the contract award for C2201-180 for the mechanical maintenance and installation services. Councillors, are there any questions to the officers? Now, I note in the agenda item, before we have a mover and a seconder, in the agenda they're actually blank items. So I'm going to ask that the mover perhaps put the item on the screen, put in the blanks, then speak to the motion. So do we have a mover for the officer's recommendation with additional comments? Councillor Williams.
Happy to move this. We've had 11 tenders that have applied for this.
Just one moment, Councillor Williams. I haven't got a seconder. So can I just confirm that what we're putting into the motion is those amendments that are on the screen?
Yeah. And Councillor Mayor Messina, I'm very happy to second the motion.
Councillor Lawrence actually had his hand up to second the motion. So, Councillor Williams, can I just confirm that those are TCM Solutions Proprietary Limited, $118,416. Item number 3, F&M Commercial Maintenance Proprietary Limited, annual fee of $52,823. Item number 4, appoints F&M Commercial Maintenance Proprietary Limited and TCM Solutions Proprietary Limited. Item number 5, $8,094,509. Is that correct, Councillor Williams?
That's correct.
Right. Moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Lawrence. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Williams?
Oh, this is another one that's pretty straightforward. We've had a number of tenders that's come to apply, and we have a number of contracts that we do this on a yearly basis. And just to say congratulations to those who have been awarded the tender.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Lawrence.
It has been covered previously by comments by Councillor Rennie in the previous motion and Councillor Williams in this current motion. The normal practices have been put in place in terms of probity, but also looking at these contracts, it also gives people a notion of the scale of the various maintenance that an organisation our size has to undertake in terms of keeping our assets and our facilities up to acceptable standards. And obviously we need professional assistance in terms of doing that, and professional contractors in terms of doing that. So it is rather mundane, but it's very important for the running of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Now, Councillor Rennie, you did want to second the motion, but I noticed that Councillor Lawrence's hand was up prior. Did you want to speak to this motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Messina. I'm happy for it to go to the vote if there are no
Thank you. Are there any further speakers? No, we put Councillor McCarthy.
Mayor, I just think it's worth noting, and I'm sure councillors will have read this, but it's a really significant element of this contract is actually the transfer of equipment and appliances from gas to electricity, which is really heavily influenced by our, obviously, our work on climate, and that we need to keep getting our own house in order. So I just wanted to recognise that is a feature of this tender and hasn't necessarily been a feature in the past.
That's an excellent point. Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Are there any further speakers? Councillors, can we have a vote? I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The next item we have on the agenda, councillors, the next report is 8.6, is the contract award for the CTO 201182 for fire safety, essential safety measures, testing, inspection and installations. Councillors, are there any questions to the officers?
Oh, my hands up.
As there are no questions, I'll put that item to the debate. Councillors, do I have a motion?
Oh, might as well.
Mover. Councillor Williams, thank you. So, and Councillor Williams, I'm trusting that you're going to read out the indentations as you did before. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Second by Councillor Rennie. Councillor Williams, over to you.
This is the provision of safety, fire safety testing, and we've had 11 tenders that attended that actually have applied for this tender. It's a 2-year contract with a 3-year one-on-one option. It's the tender is going to Essential Safety Solutions Proprietary Limited, and what they will be doing will be testing equipment such as our fire extinguishers, fire blankets, fire hoses, and our realms and blankets, fire smoke alarms, panels and detectors, and emergency warning systems. As you know, this is a common thing that happens, whether it's a council, school, or any large facility. We have to have those type of testing facilities put in place to reduce any outbreaks or issues that might occur, to ensure that those equipments are up to date. Now, the annual fee is $107,070 for and there will be 1.9 million and 32,363, which involves the capital program and annual. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else.
Can we have the motion put back on the screen, please, with the amendments that are initiated by Councillor Williams, so the councillors know what they're voting for? And it gives the preempt to Councillor Williams of the amount so that they're on the screen. Thank you. Councillor Williams, I just want to confirm that they're the amounts. Thank you. Well, I forgot who, was it Councillor Rennie? Yeah, Councillor Rennie, sorry.
That's correct. Thank you, Mayor Messina. Look, I think this is another contract award which gives a sense of the scale of the task involved in making sure all council facilities are compliant with fire safety measures. Obviously, we have very many facilities right across the municipality, and it's a big job making sure that they all have the right equipment, the right alarms, the extinguishers and everything else that is required. So the cost in this contract is up to close to $2 million over 5 years, but it's made up of programmed maintenance, of reactive maintenance works, and of capital works, which include renewals and new installations. And so the cost increases incrementally across those 5 years to take into account CPI, and is therefore just under $400,000 every year that we might anticipate, with some contingency because things may happen that we can't anticipate. So once again, I'm really satisfied, having read all the documentation of the process that's been gone through and the rigour that's been applied to assessing all of those tenders, and the probity process that's been applied.
Thank you, Councillor Williams and Councillor Rennie, for speaking on that, seconding that motion. Are there any other further speakers? Councillors, as there are no further speakers, I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, the next item for the agenda and the next report we have to consider is item number 8.7, the Edwards Park Place Space Final Concept Design. Now, councillors, are there any questions to the officers? And I do note, I think there was an amendment that was circulated. Are there any questions to the officers first? And I remind you that once we go into the debate, there'll be no further questions allowed to the officers. As there are no further questions, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Greco?
Yeah, I'm happy to move the alternate motion.
Alternate motion. Can we have the alternate motion on the screen before? I know there's a seconder already, and I'm assuming you're. Can I ask that you read this alternate motion, Councillor Newton? I noticed you'll be seconding that. Is that your Councillor Greco? That is your alternate motion.
Yes, Mayor Messina, that's the alternate.
Fantastic.
Motion.
And that is being seconded by Councillor Newton. Would you like to speak to that motion, Councillor Greco?
Thank you, Mayor Messina. Look, I really welcome this report from our officers after an extensive consultation process with the community in relation to the Edwards Lake Park play space draft concept design. And yes, and as I said, it's gone through an extensive consultation, so it's done the full loop, and now it's come to council for endorsement of these draft concept design plans. What's actually been proposed? It's embedded in the report. You could see some of the diagrams there, but just to summarise, some of the things that have been incorporated there is obviously play equipment. There's an attention to Indigenous planting, and also an attention to setting activities of an adventure nature for kids, and also there's been, as a result of the consultation and some of the feedback that was incorporated by the officers, was to do with safety and was to do with shading, and particularly the shading has been dealt with canopy trees. So there's pretty comprehensive concept design there for that particular area. And I'd just like to stress, councillors, that Edwards Lake is one of the parks, perhaps the park in our city mostly used by a number of people that even come beyond the reservoir area. So it's a very popular park. It's a park that's particularly popular with people from diverse backgrounds, and that is only logical given that in that part of the city, a lot of the people are from diverse backgrounds. So the parts in the alternate motion that I have put forward to change from the officer recommendation is to actually close the consultation loop, and that is to go back to the people that we initially started our consultation with and inform them of the outcome of what's been hopefully will be endorsed tonight, and also to provide some background in relation to how this report will be progressed through the future council processes, that is in relation to developing a detailed design process, hopefully in the next budget, and then getting it to an implementation stage. And I think that's important that we close the loop with the community. The community has been very generous with us in giving us their views, and now it's our time to report back to the community. The only other thing I would say is that we should pay a little bit more attention to ensuring that our diverse communities are adequately consulted, because as we said in this report, there's been some difficulties associated with that. I take it that COVID's been a factor, and all in all, I think it's a good report and a good process that we've gone through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Councillor Newton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Greco, for the alternate motion. So this is a very important space to our community that borders my ward and Councillor Greco's ward. And it's something that, you know, we're still under lockdown at the moment, and having something like that within our 5 kilometres is just incredible. And so I think the more that we can do to make this a really, really special place, the better. So what I found really interesting about the report and the consultation was that often we get really divisive decisions sometimes when we do consultation, or we kind of get really different views from the community. But with the wooden sound arch or the steel ferrofoam, we had a very solid result. 82% wanted the wooden sound arch. So it's really good to see that in there. And I think the thing that I really liked about the consultation that we've done and the direction that it's going to go is that it's really focused on nature play. It meets our climate emergency goals too. And what I love is that through the consultation process, they did improvements. So they looked at the sight lines so that there's passive surveillance and maintaining a sense of safety. They looked at how to reduce vandalism and graffiti, and they looked at adding canopy trees to ensure shading. So what I really like about this report is how we've asked the community what they want, we've listened to them, we've responded, and you can see that through it. And I think it's going to be really wonderful to see, and hopefully we'll be able to be free and be able to go to the park, you know, but even if we're not, you know, it's going to be fantastic. And yeah, very much agree with Councillor Greco that it needs to be funded when it can.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, Mayor Messina. I welcome this report, and obviously it brings a bit of interest and activation to the west side of the lake, which has over the years had a little bit less focus there because of the high-powered power lines and the kind of bleak windswept aspect there. So introduction of extra canopy trees that will be welcome, and especially given how many have died recently around the lake because of the age of the cypress trees that are just getting to that end of their life. And again, it adds a lot of point of community interest right near the boathouse, which again, obviously is the focus of this council to activate the boathouse. And of course, our community is more focused on these spaces because even in lockdown, we have 2 hours of precious exercise, and people are taking that up at the lake.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are there any further speakers? As there are no further speakers, I'd like to put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Greco and Councillor Newton. Can I just say that highlighted by Councillor Newton, community safety, graffiti management and tree canopy increase is a huge thing in our council plan as documented in this particular report. But I'd like to say September the 19th, please keep that in your diaries. It is a celebration of this iconic park, Lake Park's birthday, 101 in fact, but we are going to celebrate their 100th birthday. But I also note that it is going to be the closing of the Fuse Festival. It will be called Out of the Park. It'll be our multicultural festival. Given COVID restrictions will not be applying, I'm hoping that we'll be free to roam the streets at that time. Fingers crossed. So hoping that our community will be there to celebrate this particular event to raise the vibration there back at the Edwards Lake Park. Councillors, I get off my platform now. Can we go to the next report we have to consider this evening? And it is item number 8.8, Council Plan, Action Plan 2021-2022 and 2021-25 Council Plan Update. Councillors, are there any questions to the officers?
Mayor,
McCarthy.
It's just a grammatical or syntax question, sorry, and it's just a minor one. Just in point 1, number C, I'm just wondering whether it should actually read a description of how we will work or how council will work rather than how you will work, because it's referring to what
person reading the report rather than, yeah. Can we direct that over to Ms. Watson?
Apologies, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor. I think we can take that on as an administrative change within the document to ensure that it does read correctly.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Councillors, are there any further questions? As there are no further questions, we will now enter into the debate. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor McCarthy?
Happy to move it, Mayor.
We're moving the officer's recommendation?
That's correct.
Yep. Do I have a seconder? Moved by Councillor, seconded by Councillor Lawrence. Councillor McCarthy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. Hopefully this is something which I think councillors are all excited about. It's obviously the stage in the process that we've been waiting for, which is, of course, as councillors would see, the exemption that we had to seek in order to merge our municipal health and wellbeing planning with our council plan. And we really have a magnificent document there. I think it's something that the community should be really proud of in terms of bringing together and really clearly outlining the objectives, the actions that we will be undertaking, not just over the 4 years, but including in this first 12 months as well. And as councillors would see, there is reference, including in the feedback from the department Department of Health in relation to how we make ourselves accountable and how we ensure that we're reporting on those actions and that's clear to the community. So the motion really speaks for itself in terms of where we stand, and obviously the changes that council is adopting as a result of that feedback that has been received to both the council plan and the health and wellbeing profile report. And of course, the final part of this motion, which is a really significant part, is for council to adopt the council plan action plan, which of course sets out what council will do in the first year. So this is a document which I think councillors should be very comfortable with these days. We report on it on a quarterly basis and on an annual basis and as part of the full year reporting process as well. It really sets out what council will undertake in that first year. And if there is, and I think this is the message that I'd hope the community hears out of this item, is that if there is if there's something that council doesn't deliver on in that first year, but it says it's going to, then it's actually incumbent upon the organisation to report why. And generally, there's a pretty reasonable reason why. It might be to the impact of COVID, it may be to do with the impact on other partners, or it may simply be that the community feedback said we should go a different way. So I think this is a terrific document. It's clear, it's accountable, and of course the actions that are proposed cover a wide range of things, everything from maternal child health outcomes through to road maintenance, which we talked about before, along with major programs such as the proposal for a group power purchase agreement to support our businesses and other parts of the community make that rapid transition to renewables. So it's something we should all be proud of, and I hope that it's well received by the community that's had such a huge opportunity to have input up until now.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mayor Messina. At the risk of sort of repeating ourselves, because we have been working on this pretty much constantly since last November, and obviously not yet involved in feedback on this. And it is a document that covers a year plan, action plan for 1 year, and obviously also the 4-year action plan. So it really is a working program. It's more than just the 10 big actions that people see that we've written about. If you go down into the detail of this, there's a lot of more projects that are listed, and give people a sense of what the work agenda is for the next 12 months. And of course, as a council, we will be held accountable regarding delivering that.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. I note that you and I are not frozen. The time clock was frozen and all other councillors' images are frozen. Can I just get councillors to raise their hands, please? Councillor Williams, can you raise your hand, please? Yeah, sorry, there was a freezing that occurred during then, so I beg your pardon. So that was moved by Councillor McCarthy, seconded by Councillor Lawrence. It was the officer's recommendations. Are there any further speakers to the motion? There are none. Let's put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That item is carried. Thank you. Sorry, I did have some freezing on my screen then. Items number 8.9, the next report that we have for consideration, Property Matters Report. Councillors, are there any questions to the officers? Councillor Lawrence, you have a question to the officer?
No, I was just foreshadowing amendment to the motion.
Yep. Is that the one you circulated earlier, Councillor Lawrence?
Yes, that's correct.
Can we have Councillor Lawrence's amendment on the screen, please, officers? So before we go to Councillor Lawrence's foreshadowing the motion, are there any questions to the officers? Sorry, can I go back a little bit? No questions? Okay, can we please have Councillor Lawrence's amendment on the screen? And before we take a seconder, I'd like to confirm that it is your amendment, Councillor Lawrence, when it comes on the screen. That is an amendment to the item number 3 only, is that correct? So what we're doing there, we will be, councillors, as there is only an amendment for item number 3, we are going to split this motion. But what Councillor Lawrence is foreshadowing or is promoting is an amendment to item number 3 only. Is that correct, Councillor Lawrence?
That's correct. Item recommendation 1 and recommendation 2, I was going to move as.
Yep. Okay. Great. Fantastic. So what I need now is this.
Can I just seek a clarification? Given.
Councillor Greco, I can't hear you. Councillor Greco.
Yeah,
thank you.
Sorry. Given that the motion that Councillor Lawrence has put is in relation to the deferment of one particular land, given that there's another piece of land that is exactly the same circumstances that Just I've had discussions with our officers today. I think in an email that came through that they should both be treated in the same way. So if we defer one, we should be deferring both of them.
Just one moment, Councillor Greco. So Councillor Lawrence is going to move and foreshadow that item we are moving the officer's recommendation item number 1, we are moving officer's recommendation number 2, and we are deferring recommendation number 3. That's Councillor Lawrence's. So we need to deal with that first. So can we do that, please? So what we're going to do, I need is a seconder for Councillor Lawrence's amendment, please. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second that.
You're seconding this? Yes. I'm happy
to second it.
We're going to vote on each item separately, but if we're going to vote on this, Councillor Greco, we're not going to allow your foreshadowed motion because we're putting this separately. So can I suggest perhaps that we go to Councillor Rennie? Councillor Rennie.
Mayor Messina, I was just actually seeking clarification because this is an amendment. This is not an amendment. Will actually be the motion that we're voting on.
Yes, sorry.
I believe if we could have it up on the screen again, it would be possible to vote on one motion which incorporates the deferral for point 1 as suggested by Councillor Greco. So if we could see,
I'm happy to put that up if we've got support for it. So can we have the original officer's recommendation with Councillor Lawrence item number 3 for deferment? Is it going to be difficult to put on the screen? Just one moment. I might have to voice that through. Right, so that's for item number 3. Can we go to item number 1, please?
So, Mayor Messina, if number 1 could read as number 3, so if the words for number 1 were exactly the same as the words for number
3. Yeah, I was going to suggest that. One moment. So are we able to get the officers to do that? Is it difficult to do that whilst we're on live? So if I can have some feedback from the officers. So item number 1 and number 3 will be deferred, and item number 2 will be the officer's recommendation, and then we're going to vote on them separately.
Through you, Mayor Messina, I think we just need to give a bit of time for the officers to correct the slides in the background.
Yeah. And then we'll confirm.
Mayor Messina, if it could, I don't know if I've got a seconder yet.
No, we haven't, but then I need to just...
Can I just suggest I would move that item number 1 and item number 3 are deferred?
Yes.
Item number 2.
Yes, of course, yeah. I need a seconder for that, yeah.
And I'll be the seconder for it.
Fantastic, okay, fantastic. And we don't need to do anything else. So what we're doing is we can vote on them together, actually. So for item number 1 and 3 are deferred, and item number 2 is the officer's recommendation. So Councillor Lawrence, we might have some admin problems in terms of putting it on the screen. So councillors, what we're doing is voting only for item number 8.9, Property Matters Report. It is moved by Councillor Lawrence, seconded by Councillor Greco. We are deferring item number 1 in officer's recommendation and deferring item number 3 in the officer's recommendation, but moving item number 2 as per the officer's recommendation. Moved by Councillor Lawrence, seconded by Councillor Greco. Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak to your...
Yes, I would just like to speak to the deferral motion, which is around the particular circumstance we have at the moment, which is a little bit awkward for many people. And in the case of Dumbarton and Dundee Street, and I believe other item number 1, we have a situation where the consultation hasn't been able to be completed for various reasons. And also, we haven't been able to go and visit so freely, given it's locked down. So the deferral is not about the matters at hand or making prejudgments about these matters, but simply making sure that we can catch up and talk to people before we make any process decisions that take us forward, and have everyone on the one page, and obviously investigate whether it's been a language or a lockdown or a postal communication reason why we haven't heard from people. But just given that we're talking about the house, the houses that are most affected haven't responded. And so that's the purpose of the deferral, really, to make sure that we are fully on board on consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Greco, would you like to speak to the motion or the amendment?
I really don't have anything more to add to what Councillor Lawrence has said. I think he's covered it very well. And
Thank
just
you.
that the concern is about the consultation, and that needs to be underlined.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers? As there's no further debate and speakers, let's put that item to the vote. All those in favour?
I think it's just through you, Mayor Messina. I think it's just arriving on the screen now.
Okay, just one moment. Great. That includes that, but it doesn't include. Yeah, it's not the full. It's not the full motion. So 1 and 3 are deferred. Item number 2, but we take it. We're all on the same page. Let's put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, on this report we have to consider this evening is item number 8.1, Governance Report July 2021. Do we have any questions to the officers? As there are no questions, councillors, do I have a motion? Do I have a mover? Councillor Rennie, are you moving the councillor's officer's recommendation? Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor Messina. Once again, this report summarises a number of different activities that have been undertaken by councillors and advisory committees over the last while, and it's now become a standing item on the agenda. I remain very pleased that it's been moved forward onto the agenda proper, and rather than being tacked on at the end where it didn't get the same level of attention perhaps, and really commend it to the community if they're interested in understanding a little more about the workings of council and what councillors have been up to and the sort of activities that people have engaged in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. Councillor Lawrence.
Mayor Messina, I've got nothing to add. Councillor Rennie's covered it, I believe.
Are there any further speakers? Councillors, I'm going to put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Moved by Councillor Rennie and Councillor Lawrence. Thank you. The next item we have to consider is item number 9, notices of motion. 9.1, review of laneway policy. Can I please have the notice of motion on the screen, which I'm certain will be moved by Councillor Lawrence. But before we go into commentary, I'd like to ensure that Councillor Lawrence's amended motion, because I understand there was a circulation of an amendment motion. Councillor Lawrence, if I ask you to read that, that is your amended motion before I seek a seconder.
Yes, Mayor Messina, this is a slightly altered version from the officers who have crafted and put it down to 3 points rather than 4 points, and the 4 points were earlier circulated to all councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence, that you work with the officers to undertake that. Seconded by Councillor McCarthy.
No, sorry, Mayor. I just had a question. I just want to understand if I can, because it's the first time I've seen this. Sorry, if I can just understand in the third dot point, it refers to no net loss of green open space. Council's policy is actually a net increase in green open space. So it changed about 4 years ago. So I'm just wondering if that's what Councillor Lawrence was referring to, whether the words could be amended to reflect the policy that Council has.
My understanding is that the officers helped draft this amended motion. Can we then take questions to the officers and the Councillor Lawrence? Councillor Lawrence, I'm assuming you're attending the same narrative as Councillor McCarthy.
Councillor Mayor Messina, I'm happy to have that phrase changed to ensure there is a gain of green open space. In this context, we're talking about laneways, so we're talking about the proximity of the laneways, and as we deal with them, do we actually, at the moment, sometimes it ends up with a loss of open space in that context of a laneway. But I'm happy to have it changed to ensure there's an increase in green open space.
Can I invite the officer perhaps that Can I invite at this stage, invite the officer that helped draft the amended motion for some comments, please? Given that we just need some clarity from Councillor Lawrence and Councillor McCarthy. Was it Rachel Olivier that helped you? Can I just confirm that that was the officer that assisted you with the wording? Councillor Lawrence?
It may have been Jody and a few other officers, I think.
Okay, so I would need an officer. Are you happy? Would you like some clarity from the officers, Councillor Lawrence?
No, I take Councillor McCarthy's point. Our overall objective is a net increase. It's just in this context, it's laneways where we're getting a net decrease.
Yep, okay, all right. Councillor Lawrence, Councillor McCarthy, does that answer your question?
Look, it's Councillor Lawrence's motion. I just wanted to understand if we're referring to a policy. If that's the policy, then that's the policy. So that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Lawrence. Do I have a seconder of Councillor Lawrence?
I don't have a seconder. I'll then move it with an amendment just to take in Councillor McCarthy's point.
Do you want some clarification from the officers before you do your amendment, Councillor Lawrence? Or do we take it as that's what the benefit is at the end and then the officers adjust it?
I'm just taking Councillor McCarthy's point that our objective is to increase open space, you know.
Okay, so do you want to, so can we go back to the amended motion, please, on the screen so we can ensure that we have the correct wording, please? And then I'll ask for a seconder. So we're just removing the words net loss to net gain?
Yes, that's all.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do I have a second by Councillor Greco? Is that correct, Councillor Greco?
Yes, that's right.
Councillor Lawrence, would you like to speak to your amended motion?
Sorry, Mayor Messina, I hate to interrupt, but I don't think it is as simple as changing net loss to net gain, because then we would have no net gain of open space. So
okay. It's very difficult because I don't have it on the screen.
If we could avoid a change, I think that would be helpful, because changes on the one that we haven't seen of where we land in trouble.
Which was my initial commentary at the beginning.
We're talking about a review, so the opportunity to change the words will come later if we could stick.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Would you like to speak to your amended motion?
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Councillor Greco has.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I don't want to get too caught up in the point 3, which obviously we're going to get a report and a review, but it is worth noting that we do have an overall policy to increase open space, yet in some circumstances with the disused laneways disposals, with the change in 2015 in our policy, we don't have a policy setting that's addressed in point 2, which is what do we do where people have turned old unmained laneways, cared for them for 30 or 40 years or whatever, and had gardens there, and our current policy lets them to be split up, and they could actually end up driveways and brick structures because they get absorbed into development sites. So this matter is particularly consideration in areas where there's unmade lanes, and they have been, you know, in people's backyards and been turned into backyards for a long time. It's not all of the laneways, it's a small percentage of them. So originally the motion I sent around gave consideration to both our pre-2015 clauses, which referred to occupied spaces and having some preference in terms of offering those to those people. And it also had previously a mention of the Melbourne City Council ruling which looked at occupation levels of 12 years, and they have a clause there. So really it's about that our current policy doesn't have that finesse of a response to deal with where someone has really cared for and turned these spaces into incredibly good green areas. Now, we had one that's been deferred tonight. Obviously, we'll be debating it again in Dundee Street, Dumbarton. It's a similar one. It's actually 6 metres wide, and those spaces that when they get lost and absorbed into development sites, shockingly, we also get mature trees chopped off on the adjoining land. So there's a really kind of critical issue of loss of habitat and canopy and loss of open space in the built environment. And I think we should be maximising our outcome from disused lanes, that we maximise the amount of tree canopy and garden space that gets preserved, not just for the individuals involved, but for the future of the city and for future occupants.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Greco.
Thank you, Mayor Messina. Look, I really welcome Councillor Lawrence's initiative with this notice of motion, and the fact that we're going to get a report and then a future review on this particular aspect of council's work. I think it's important that we relook at this. It's been 6 years now that we have changed the policy. And that we've seen with the current policy, it creates anomalies, particularly from the perspective of the residents, and we should be addressing that so that we are as fair and as equitable as possible in relation to the residents. And we've seen tonight, there's been 2 examples where we've had to defer some of these cases because we haven't been able to consult with the residents, and they are the residents that are currently occupying the land, and it could be said caring for that land for a number of years, and that could be completely disenfranchised as a result of our existing policy, where the boundaries may change because the abutting properties may make a bigger, more attractive offer to buy that land. So we've got to avoid those sort of situations or ameliorate those situations. And I think a review of the policy will enable us to do that. So I look forward to us engaging in that. It's a minor thing, but I think it's important for a small part of our community, and particularly in relation, because we're dealing about land and its distribution and its affordability and the capacity of residents to actually make an offer or occupy that land and following particular rules. But we have to set the rules in a way that they are equitable and give residents an opportunity to have a say. So I look forward to the report and to the review, Councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Councillor Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm supportive of this motion as well, and I thank Councillor Lawrence for working with the officers to get it where it is now. This is something that comes to us a fair bit, actually, and it's something that's really difficult for people because they might have bought a property not knowing that that little bit at the end of their backyard is still council property in some cases, and they've looked after it for years. So it comes to us a fair bit, and it's really challenging when more than one person does want to purchase that land. So I think a review of this is worth it. It's timely, and it's something that if we can clean this up, if we can make it more strategic, people can be more aware of what's happening, and we can have better results with it. I think it's really worth it. So very timely, and thank you, Councillor Lawrence, for bringing it.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Are there any further speakers? Thank you, Councillor Greco, Lawrence and Newton. I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That item is carried. Thank you, Councillor Newton. A very important policy that we need to look at. And I think I just want to preempt that if you're buying property in this hot market, have a look at your Section 32 when you contract a sale. I just have to highlight that. Just that avoids all issues in the future. Thank you very much. Can I also now go into item number 10, Councillors' urgent business? There is no urgent business to consider. We will now move into the next item, which is item number 11, consideration of reports considered confidential. There are no items for consideration. Item number 12, close of meeting. Before we close the meeting, I just want to thank the officers that helped put together tonight. There's a lot of work that's done in the background. I want to thank the councillors who went through and checked all their IT equipment, because we didn't want to avoid the issues that we had in one of the council meetings, a planning committee meeting recently, and we wanted to iron them out. So I want to say thank you for your availability to come in early and iron out those issues. Thank you to the officers who have held in the background to ensure that tonight runs smoothly. Keep safe, everybody. We've got one more day. Hopefully it's the end of lockdown. From us to you, thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully we'll be in person next time. And I want to declare the meeting closed this evening at 7:51. Thank you and good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.